On your feet! Get them going!
Man, I had myself on there, and then I clicked it again because I didn't think I had it on there, and then I removed myself. What a knucklehead. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be in your particular time zone on this sphere we live on. Hold on. Error occurred. Wait, what's happening? Is this not playing? Oh, okay, it's playing. All right. Well, that was weird. I went to go check on YouTube if this was playing, and it said error occurred. Devil's Hair says not as late as the Friday night tights like that one time. I still don't know. I don't know the lore on that. You know, I was on FNT one time. I'm going to turn the light on. Howdy. Devil's Air and John Mintz here so far. Devil's Air, you had a question in the Discord, and I was going to attend to it. So the question was... A coworker of mine has a problem with the Bible. That is, how can Adam and Eve be the first two humans on Earth, yet someone gets sent out of the Garden of Eden to another city? Again, this is a Genesis question. No, that is, first of all, incorrect. Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, and then the time period between the murder of Abel is never said. It doesn't say how long Abel was alive. It doesn't say how long before Cain and Abel got into the fight. It's not like they got up, had babies, and those babies killed themselves when they were 5 years old or something, right? These were two grown men. No one knows how old they were. So they, first of all, they were not in Eden. They were already, Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden before she was preggers. It was just the two of them. Out. No more Eden for them. Locked, closed, flaming sword, angels, no more Eden. And then they went out and they started populating the earth. There was no birth control. There was no abortion. They were ready-made from the get-go. They were full adults. And I am presuming quite fertile. So let's do some math. In the good old days, I mean, granted, we don't have any idea what age Adam and Eve were biologically when they were created. Let's make man in our image. Let's presume they were 30 looking. Is that too old looking? I know we hit like physical maturity at like 25. So let's call them 25 looking. So there we were. We're automatically there. Instant populators. So yes, he has a problem with how two people can populate the earth if there are just two. Okay, so say they have babies their first year, which is more than likely. And then their second year, since they're probably, you know, people like that now, right? You've seen them, that they're oddities now, but they'll have babies like every year. I saw this lady, she had, I don't even know, she had like 20 kids or something like that because she just has babies every year. All right, say you're doing that. And say those kids wait until they're, you know, realistically, they would have been about 14 before they started populating. Let's just call it 15. So let's let Grok do the math, since I don't want to do the math myself. All right, Grok. If you have, okay, math problem, math equation. If you have a breeding pair of people, Let's just call them people. And by the way, there's no murder, there's no disease, all of this stuff up until the first murder is is Abel. If you have a breeding pair of humans, let's call them humans, adult of breeding age, and let's, instead of every year, let's say every 2 years they have a baby. They have offspring every 2 years. Those offspring begin breeding at the age of 15 and have offspring every 2 years. And this cycle continues. In how many humans will there be in, let's give it a generation, 40 years? Question mark. Initial setup. We start with one breeding pair, which means 2 humans at year 0. Each pair produces a child every 2 years. Offspring start breeding at 15 years old, meaning they can produce their first child at 16. Year 2, the initial pair has their first child, 3 humans. Year 4, they have another child, 4 humans. Year 6, another child, 5 humans, blah, 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 blah. Year 16, the initial pair produces another child. Child from year, total 10. Year 18, 12. Year 20, 15. Year 24, 22. By year 40, I'm just going to skip down here. So by the year 40, by 40 years after they start breeding, the population could be 158. Now, do 60 years. Because it gets exponential. It's an exponential thing. So by year 48, you'd have 220. By year 60, you'd have 343. All right. And that assumes no twins, no triplets, no nothing like that. How about 100 years? Also, the term city doesn't mean like New York, right? The term city would just mean another area where people went and populated. So like Kansas City in the 1800s, or actually we have cities here with population like 43. In 100 years, you'd have 1,136. Wow, I wonder how many you'd have after 1,000 years. If we did this math, this would be what? How after 1,000 years? Adam died at 900 and let's do 900. How old was Adam? 943, something like that. Let's do just 900. Let's do 920. I think he died around 940. But I want to see how many people could have been on Earth by the time Adam died. That would be, in the model's context, the number would be unfathomable, astronomically large figure, but this would be purely theoretical and reflective of any feasible. Just based on the math. Gosh darn it. Just based on the math. It doesn't want to give me the number. Hold on a second. 27, 54, 54 years. Each pair has 27 children over 54 years. Oh, hold on. That might be why the number's going up. Oh my gosh. All right, if there was no death or disease, the population by the time Adam died would have been what is that? Million, billion, 2.4 trillion people. Okay. So okay, that's more people than have ever existed. So clearly there was death and disease and whatnot. But hold on a second. What's a bad one? Do the basic math again at 80 years, but presume that the humans never stop being able to breed.
Oh, are you doing some sort of calculation with a longer fertility period?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, because yeah, I don't know how many eggs we get, but it's a lot. Women get a lot of eggs. They get like, right, and then their body just starts dumping them at the end because they hit menopause. Oh wow. Okay, so all right, doing that math, by year 80. Okay, yeah. That's weird. So by year 80, if the women don't hit menopause because they're more perfect than they are now, there'd be 14,578,361.8. That's crazy.
Well, I was not mentally prepared to step into this, and this is why it's important that I'm early.
Yeah, no. So Devil's Errors had a friend at work or something that asked, how could Adam and Eve, be the only? How could you start with only two people and
Right.
then they get, what's his face? Cain gets sent to another city, and it's like, well, first of all, they weren't in Eden when that happened, and we
Yes.
don't know how old they were. So, apparently, if Cain killed Abel when he was 80,
Right.
there would have been about 14.5 million humans on Earth, or there could have been,
Could have been.
in perfect conditions, which it was pretty close to perfect conditions back then.
Mm.
So let's just say there was. You don't even have to say. You could say there was a million, and you could say they did it at 40 years. It doesn't. And a city doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of people. What is? Let me last spot. What is the lowest population city in America? Minoa, Nebraska. Population 1.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay. See, so there it is. It doesn't have to be a big city. It didn't have to be when they were teenagers, barely out the gate, right? So there's all kinds of very reasonable, logical calculations you can do on how, when Cain got kicked, he didn't get kicked out of Eden. When Cain got removed from Adam and Eve, when they exiled him, he went someplace else where more of Adam and Eve's progeny had already gone and set up shop.
Well, I guess if we're going to do like this, but I feel like we're indulging foolish questions potentially.
No, it's not, because it's a question that somebody at his work had a question and thus doubting the Bible. How could this happen?
Well,
how many eggs is a female human born with?
presumptively
1 to 2 million.
Okay. So presumptively neither Adam or Eve's DNA had any genetic errors.
Right. Right, because they are made in the image and likeness of a perfect God.
Or mutations.
Right. So that's your question, Devil's Air. Is that good? How about the incest? Oh, that's the question you're answering.
Yeah.
Yeah, incest wasn't outlawed until Moses because it was unnecessary. Because as perfect creatures, there was no need for the problem with incest. All right, how do I break this down?
Let's not.
No. This is an apologetics channel, Edwin. This is
I
these are the
know,
questions that people are asking.
but unless you're going to devote like the entire program to it, it is a nuanced and it's a thoughtful thing. And there's so many ways. There's so many ways where this can be clipped out, distorted, and made made something to ridicule you. So rather than going from like a form of a useful apologetic, it will be used to mock you. And I feel like I would be doing you a disservice as a friend, not by your audience, not by the people who actually know you and understand what you're doing, but by the people who would like to ridicule you.
I don't care. People can ridicule me all they want.
Okay. I just felt like it was my obligation to say that as your friend.
Adam and Eve are perfect. Their genetics are perfect. Over time, when you this is the same problem we have with pedigree dogs, right? Over time, in the breeding, the genetics get mixed up. So like, let's just call it like the alphabet of the genetic language, right? So in Adam had A through Z, Eve had A through Z, Cain and Abel probably had A through Z. As you go down the line, you get to Methuselah. Maybe Methuselah had 2 A's and 2 B's, but no Z and no Y, right? And then his wife had a similar thing. So you start to lose and mix up the genetic code, which eventually it creates genetic bottlenecking, right? So that, and this takes a lot of generations to get to this much error, but that's why when you get to a certain bottleneck of your genetic code, that's what we see when we do this to dogs and cats, right? Well, not cats so much, dogs. Actually, cats too. That's a different story. But dogs have this huge genetic variation, right? So that's why you can like take 2 mutts and breed them together, and you'll have the healthiest animal, right? But you take those mutts and you breed them because all you want is white hair, and then you breed them down, you breed them down, you breed them down, you breed them down, you get rid of all you don't breed the ones that don't have lighter hair until you get to the white-haired ones. You're narrowing and you're bottlenecking the genetic lineage of that line of those animals. And then you want short white hairs. And so you do it even more. And then you get to the point where you have a toy poodle, right? And then you can only breed you can't only, but you're breeding the toy poodle only to other toy poodles who have had all of the other genetic variants pulled out. So now what you don't want to be doing is breeding those toy poodles to their brothers and sisters, because that's when you get the toy poodles and their tongues are sticking out of the side of their face, and they're like freaking pooping all over the floor all the time because they have incontinence, and because you've bred into them so little genetic material that it causes errors in the reproduction. And that's basically why God allowed incest all the way up until Moses. Literally, Moses's mom was his aunt, right? So after Moses, they got, the law came down and said, okay, no more of this.
Yes.
But it was not a necessary law until the genetic lines got. So, I mean, look, when we were born, when Adam and Eve were created, all their kids probably looked a lot like them. They probably had, I don't know, that they weren't blonde, they weren't Asian, they weren't African American, right? They had everybody's genetic material in them, and then as we selectively bred, right? We did to ourselves what we now do to dogs because we want a toy poodle. And then You have the genetic line that ends up on an island in Ireland marrying their cousins. Whatever. It's no offense to the Irish. I'm just making a point, right?
Sure.
So that's why incest wasn't an issue back then.
Back then. Yeah.
Right. It's a problem now.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. So the behaviors and the way of life is going to be modified by the time in which it occurs, the specific settings and the environment in which it occurs, and even within the context of the civilization of which it occurs. Dark Admiral Marcher says, "This is the oldest cross-examination yet, and that's saying something." So again, for clarity, lest anyone try to abuse my good friend Mike S. Miller, Mike S. Miller was capturing or attempting to explain the scientific rationale for the way people mated with each other at a very early time in man's history, but not contemporary civilization.
Right. Now let's talk about slavery.
Ooh, fun. Wait a cotton picking minute.
No, I was going through Leviticus the other day, and the whole slavery portion came up, and it's like quite different from what people think about slavery when they say, "Oh, the Bible condemns slavery." It's like, bro, that ain't slavery the way you're thinking about slavery.
Yeah. Well, it kind of takes on a different form in every civilization. Like one of my favorite philosophers is a fellow named Epictetus, and he was a slave of the Romans, eventually freed, but he's usually depicted as being lame because apparently his master broke his leg. But then either that master or a subsequent master paid for him to have like an incredible education in philosophy.
Yeah. It's like the culture, the way, and you know what? I'm not even going to say the way we did it in America. The way some people treated slaves in America.
Sure.
I mean, look, the way some people treated slaves in ancient Rome, right? But it's not like this one word does not encompass the entirety of how people were treated in that category throughout time and space. It's
who was the fellow who wrote the graphic novel about the Spartans that became a movie?
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller, okay, and that was called The 300, right?
Yeah.
All right. So if you actually examine the history of the Spartans were probably the most prolific slave owners in ancient or classical Greece, and to their shame, the primary slaves they owned were other Greeks who were called the Helots.
Yeah.
And so Spartan society, which has kind of been given, kind of a revisionist Hollywood treatment, they were kind of proto.
Well, that's the way it worked back then. You conquered a people, they became your slaves. And the Spartans were good at conquering people.
I think among the Greeks, they were kind of unique at enslaving other Greeks. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they weren't bigots. See, that's the thing about the black slave trade here. The black slave trade. I mean, the original slaves in America were the Irish.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the black slaves were actually like super expensive compared to the Irish, because the Irish just came over with the English in the boats, and then you had to import the black slaves all the way from Africa, and a lot of them died along the way, and so they were more expensive. They were stronger, and they actually made it illegal to breed your black slaves to your Irish slaves, which is where the term mulatto comes from, by the way. Because you were creating slaves that the slave trade market to compete with the slave trade market. So you were reducing you were increasing supply versus demand,
I
right?
see.
So they made it illegal. Hey, you can't do that. It's like,
Well,
I don't
who
know. I'm
was
not
it?
laughing at the whole slave trade, but
Eh,
interesting point, a fact that almost nobody thinks about and nobody ever mentions. Only, I believe, 4% of the African slave trade came to America.
And talking about bondage, was it Jacob who essentially bonded himself to be able to marry the? Yeah, you can marry my daughter. I'm just going to need you to plow my fields for 7 years.
Yeah, and then another 7 years. And you want your stuff? Another 7 years.
Psych. Oh, plot twist. It
Yeah.
wasn't the daughter you wanted.
But yeah, that's part of the Levitical law. Is you if you enslave another Jew, you have to let him go after 7 years.
Yes.
Was it 6
And
years?
a periodic forgiveness. Our system is counter biblical, actually, at the point. Well, starting with usury, but no debt forgiveness, and so forth. Right?
Yeah. In you mean the Jubilee forgiveness?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
There was no perpetual debt. There was no perpetual slavery under that model.
All right. Let me share my. Oh wait, what's this?
Nice.
That's what happens when you grind and you make videos people actually care about. I mean, not like this channel, but
Well, I think we've managed to horrify all the remaining viewers. So
Admiral says the Irish were just packing material for the potatoes that were being sent here. I'm part Irish. I'm allowed to say it. Potatoes. But he says Edwin strikes me as a stoic. Makes sense. All right, let's get on to. Hold on. I think I need to do this as a unique screen. King James Bible Online.
The likelihood of one of these, gibbering monkeys that would want to, try and torment Mike watching a Bible show is actually probably about zero.
Yeah, and I would hope that they do. They might learn something. I don't feel like I've been a particular target lately.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure that you're really fodder for generating a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, well, they'll bring me up, but I never mention names. I almost never mention anybody's name on this either of my channels.
On either channel, that makes sense. Yeah.
I did the starve them
Starve them
out.
Yeah, there shall be famine in the land.
Yes. All right, buddy's saying contra Celsus by origin mentions Epictetus.
Epictetus. That's where I recognize.
Oh, that's
the name.
epic and tedious. That's where I recognize the name.
You would like the Enchiridion. So just
dude, that's an awesome name for like a freaking villain.
The Enchiridion.
The Enchiridion.
It's Greek for manual, essentially like an instruction manual. But just briefly, without getting into philosophy, the Apostle Paul in if you read Paul and you read Epictetus, you will find a correspondence, and then they both wound up in the same remote Roman colony, but not at the same time. But there's echoes of you'll hear a similarity.
Interesting.
All
right, on to the Bible. It is, wow, right as I said that, it turned into the 30-minute mark. That's fine. All right, this is the Song of Moses, sort of. Edward, please don't sing, but
no.
Do
No.
the ring. We don't allow Edwin to sing on this channel because I love my chat.
Singing is not one of the gifts that the Lord God chose to bestow upon me.
No.
Which is why I sing at every opportunity when I'm on the mic. But I will not today. All right, we are in Exodus chapter 15.
All right.
How's my volume, by the way? I'm not yelling at
Good.
the audience.
Hold on. What do I have this set at? Yep, I'm at 50. So you're good.
Okay.
Amy, you shush. And hello.
Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song, and he has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him a habitation, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war, the Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea, his chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them, they sank into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentst forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. Here I believe the stubble is as the stubble of the field, what you would see after the stalks of grain have been cut, Mike.
Yeah.
And with the blast of thy nostrils the waters were gathered together, the flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the enemy. The enemy said,
Let's see.
I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil, my lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretched out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people, which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto the holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina.
I always found that interesting.
It's an old term.
I know, but it's the Philistines.
Yes, that is
The
what
land
the
of the
term is
Philistines.
derived from. Yeah. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed, the mighty men of Moab trembling shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall be melted away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of thine arm. They shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over. O Lord, to the people pass over, which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established.
Sorry, you know, it just dawned on me.
What's that?
These are the people are singing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of those guys are gonna make it.
No. No. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, And all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness, and found no water.
What have you done for me lately?
And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the water of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord shewed him a tree, which he had cast into the waters, and the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water.
What's his face? The one that found
Wyatt, Ron
the bridge.
Wyatt.
Yeah, Wyatt. He found this place.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm curious about the tree they threw in the water. This reminds me of when Isaac put the tree bark in the water for the sheep, and it made them change colors.
Interesting.
I'm always curious about this. I know copper will, like a lack of copper, will cause gray hair.
Okay.
Like it's copper gives your cells elasticity. It also gives your hair color, or a lack thereof. If you're not like genetically predisposed to just have gray hair, I guess.
Right.
It'll do that. But I'm wondering because in what they put in ships, what they put in the barrels of water so they didn't go bad.
Well, they could have put copper or some kind of copper.
Yeah, they put silver coins.
Yeah.
Because of silver coins, because bacteria can't survive in contact with silver.
Right.
Because it breaks the cell membrane on the bacteria. I'm wondering if there's something particular that also does that in whatever kind of tree was used here. It's like me just trying to put together like.
Oh, well, there certainly could have been some, but it said the water was bitter, and so I don't think it was. There could have been some sort of substance in it. Could have been some alkaloids dissolved into it. And so if you're thinking just in scientific terms, then the bark could have caused a chemical reaction that caused the alkaloids to precipitate out of the water and make it drinkable, or it simply could have been an act of faith, and then the process of making the water drinkable was purely miraculous.
That's true. I just tend to think that God uses what he's already created a lot more than we tend to think he does. Salt water, silver. That's why colloidal silver was popular medicine in the day. I use colloidal silver if you have a lung infection or something. I nebulize colloidal silver. I think of silver as a purifier. Yeah. It's good for that. It's good for that. I don't know how they figured that out for ocean. But I'm trying to remove.
Well, so the way they learned some of this stuff is the first metalworking would have been with the softer metals, copper, silver, and so forth. These are easier to work They're more malleable. They take less heat to smelt and forge them.
Yeah.
And so vessels of copper were also used to store things to keep them from going bad,
Hmm.
right? Because copper has a similar effect. Copper vessels have
And
a
gold,
similar,
yeah.
yeah,
That's weird, huh? Like these metals.
yeah.
That's why, like during COVID, like they didn't want, like Catholic churches use silver cups for the mass, and it's like
Mm-mm.
nobody got COVID because the COVID couldn't survive in the, in the nothing would, no virus or bacteria would survive in if you're like going person to person and you're using a silver goblet to share. It's like
Yeah.
nobody got sick from that. Amy says, or the water could represent cleansing, which people were not able to withstand, and the tree could represent Christ and his sacrifice, which is our cleansing in life. Both things could be true. Dark Admiral, I didn't read it out loud, but that's a good point. There could be the tree was charred. Charcoal removes impurities, Mike. But that's as a filter. What actually it does absorb. It absorbs toxins. That's actually a
Well,
good point.
that's
They'll
because
actually give you, like, if you get poisoned or if you
Mhm.
eat something you're not supposed to, it's poison, then you go to the doctor. They'll make you drink a milkshake that's mixed with charcoal.
Sure. And what charcoal is essentially elemental carbon. And carbon is amazing for binding with things. Pure elemental carbon that's why life is made out of carbon.
There you go. And there you have it. I put the NCB version of the song in Cross Examinations channel.
Cool.
All right. All right. We use the King James version around here, buddy. But you do you. Hey, what's up, Matt Barr?
Matt Barr.
Amy says, Ash made the acorn flower edible in my side of the mountain. Wasn't it, Edwin?
And so what that was, Amy, is if you take ash, ash is very basic. And so the basic nature, right, alkaline or like lye interacting with the acorn flower, with the tannins in the acorn flower would make it edible. Yeah, it would kind of negate the tannins.
Oh, gosh, you just reminded me of something that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but I'm going to... You probably saw it in the Bible debate. Have you heard of allulose?
Allulose. Like
Yeah.
cellulose, but different?
It's where am I? All right, stop screen, present screen. This I found terribly interesting. So allulose, sorry, Bible study part over. or slightly sidetracked, possibly. We could do both. I just think this is cool. Allulose is a low-calorie sugar substitute that can be used in place of table sugar in recipes, but it's natural. This isn't like erythritol or any of those fake sugars. This is a real naturally occurring sugar. It's a rare sugar that occurs naturally in small amounts in some fruits, grains, and syrups like figs, raisins, jackfruit, and kiwi. Grains like wheat, syrups like maple, and molasses. Allulose has a similar flavor and texture to table sugar, but it's about 70% as sweet and contains less than 10% of the calories. That's not the cool part. Listen to this. 4.4, it doesn't matter. Allulose can be a healthy substitute for table sugar, especially for people with diabetes or those trying to cut back on sugar. Some animal studies suggest that allulose may lower your blood sugar, increase your insulin sensitivity, and decrease the risk of type 2 diabetes. And that's a naturally occurring sugar. How cool is that?
And
I thought that might be a good piece of information for some people who might want to substitute. It's expensive. It's not like cheap as regular table sugar is freaking dirt cheap because they're trying to poison us all, right? Where do you buy this magic sugar? Amazon or probably Whole Foods, I would guess.
So,
Hey.
not related to Exodus. I just saw Matt Barr mention my side of the mountain. We perform that. This is from one of the Redwall stories, but the reason I wanted to bring this image up, it was drawn by Euronymous Flash, but it was colored by Amy Lester. So Mike
Very
has
nice.
Mike has a legitimately talented audience.
Nice. Very nice. That's cute. So what are you guys doing with that?
It was just done during the performance. We should probably do something eventually, but it's been an interesting couple of years for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Matt Barr is very, very talented, and you know where he's actually talented that people don't give him credit for is his humor. Matt actually sometimes will slip in some subtle humor, and because people are
Matt
used
will
to
sometimes slip in some not so
not so
subtle
subtle
humor.
humor. Yeah, yeah, but because of that, because of everybody thinks that Matt is super performative, sometimes he has these little subtle jewels in there that just kind of get lost in the mix. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, what's Buddy Rabbit saying? Elisha.
Elijah.
What's the last thing he said? Oh, the bitter water miracle with Elijah, and he means Elisha. What is the
I,
bitter water?
well, he
I'm
gave
drawing a
you a
blank.
scriptural reference. He gave you a passage.
Ay 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 ay. Did he?
2 Kings 2:19.
Oh. Do-do-do, la-da-dee, la-da-dee, la-da-da. You mean back to the Bible? 2 Kings 2:19. Okay.
And when they urged him till he was ashamed, he said, Send. They sent therefore 50 men, and they sought 3 days, but found him not. And when they came again to him, for he tarried at Jericho, he said unto them, Did I not say unto you, Go not? And the men of the city said unto Elijah, Behold, I pray thee, the situation of this city is pleasant, as my Lord seeth, but the water is not, and the ground barren. And he said, Bring me a new cruse, and put salt therein. And they brought it to him. And he went forth unto the spring of the waters, and cast the salt in there, and said, Thus saith the Lord, I have healed these lands, there shall not be from thence any more death of barren land. So the waters were healed unto this day, according to the saying of Elisha, which he spake. Now, presumably, tossing a bunch of salt into the water does not make the water better. So here we have no scientific explanation, but rather a miracle through faith.
Well, it depends. What was bitter about the water is the question. Because salt, you put salt in some freshwater stuff, it's going to kill some stuff.
Yes.
So it could be the stuff that was in it that was causing it to be bad water, and the salt just a one-time dose of. It's like taking a dose of ivermectin. It'll kill all your parasites at least once.
And a cruse is a small container typically made of earthenware used to hold liquids like oil, water, honey, or wine. So
Yeah, so it wasn't like a handful of salt.
bring me
like,
a little jar of salt.
right. So, but like this much salt, right? It probably would have been around this, maybe even more. A cruise could be like like your thing of iced tea. Could be like a quart or more. Let's see how big a cruise is.
It's also called an earthen pot, a bottle, or liquids, but you're talking about a container that's probably a quart or so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, that has nothing to do with cruise. All right. But yeah, we're in agreement. It's probably that's a lot of freaking salt. So you dump that into a freshwater source. I'm pretty sure it'd kill a lot of stuff in there that might be causing the problem. Or it could just be a miracle, but for some reason I think it's let's just call it both. Like you've heard my whole thing on Jericho, right? How I think Jericho fell.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all like it is God, but at the same time it's God just using what's already there to cause I'd say naturally, but the effect is natural, but the cause is God. If that makes sense. This bitter water motif happens like 4 times.
Well, there's also the reference to wormwood, right?
Yeah, what is wormwood? It's a particular kind of tree, right?
Let's find the passage in the Bible. Let me go to my Bible. It's mentioned in Proverbs also. Proverbs 5:4. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. And then in Revelations 8:10.
Well, let me just say, Artemisia absinthium. Oh, is that where they get absinthe?
Could be.
I mean, looks like it. Yeah. Wormwood is the key ingredient in the production of absinthe. Is a species of plant commonly known as wormwood. It's an herbaceous perennial shrub with a strong bitter taste and aromatic leaves. It's part of the genus Artemisia. You don't care about all that stuff. So yeah, it's a shrubbery. It's a shrubbery. Ding! Anyways.
Yeah, so in Revelations 8:10, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from the heavens, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter.
Because people like Matt Barr were drinking it.
Okay. Oh, see, Matt with the reference there. Very
Matt.
nice.
Pounding that wormwood, eh, Matt? It's hard to get the real stuff with actual wormwood now. Yes, now it's just LSD or something.
What's it? What is the danger of drinking absinthe? Was it strychnine poisoning?
It's an insecticide.
Nice.
Nice. I don't know if you want to. I don't want to know if you want to drink too much Roundup, but it is historically used for medicinal purposes for its purported benefits in treating digestive issues and as an insecticide, which seem like 2 different things.
I'll have a rum and coke with just a little splash of Zyklon B, if you will.
But that's kind of thing with most medicines, right? A little bit is medicinal, and a lot is poison, right? And then that's kind of the thing with homeopathic medicines too. They'll take a poison and they'll make it practically not even there, right? So it has some sort of I don't even know if homeopathic medicine works, but I know that's the concept. It's like they'll take something like strychnine or whatever it is, and they'll put it in such a tiny amount that it causes your body to have a beneficial reaction to it or something like that. I don't really know.
Oh, neat. Matt says he has an absinthe set, glasses and sugar spoons, the whole kit, used it once. But I feel like if you were going to drink absinthe, you would want to don like a top hat and put on a cravat, you know? You wouldn't just want to like...
Halfway there, bro. This is my absinthe. This is definitely what I'm using for my absinthe nights.
It tastes like licorice. Oof.
Oh, that's gross. I hate it.
Oof.
Oh, that's an interesting aside. So my dad, this is part of the whole story about how my dad got saved, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But this particular thing, my dad was in his 60s and he had never had high blood pressure in his life, right? He was a pilot. He was a pilot. I mean, he owned a plane, and so that was part of his master plan when he changed his insurance policy. Was he was going to fly his plane into the side of the mountain so it looked like an accident, so that we would get rich off of the insurance because he
nice.
But anyways, That's not the point. I noticed, and I didn't realize this. I didn't discover this for years later, but about the time he got high blood pressure, he had just visited his long lost family out in Minnesota,
Okay.
and come back with a black licorice habit.
Huh.
Yeah, he just discovered and fell in love with black licorice, ate it all the time, and then suddenly lost his pilot's license because he had high blood pressure, and you can't. If you have high blood pressure, you can't be a pilot.
Right.
And it wasn't until years after he passed away that I somehow stumbled upon a thing that said that black licorice causes high blood pressure.
Well,
it's like, oh, God was really just,
I ate black licorice once and have never felt compelled to repeat that mistake. Here.
Yeah, I don't get how anybody has an affinity for that.
Have some tar candy with aftertaste. Yeah. You'll love it. Yeah.
So, anyways, that was one step in the long and orchestrated design to have my dad saved before he passed away.
Wormwood.
God spared him by getting him hooked on licorice. Yeah, what's funny is after he lost his pilot's license, he suddenly wanted to buy a motorcycle. Because accidental death requires something of an accident. And then it's funny, we just didn't discover this until after he had passed away. We went back and they're like, yeah, like 6 months before he had his stroke, he switched his policy to accidental death. After, he's 60 years old, suddenly you want to switch your insurance policy to accidental death. And then you have to have your policy like that for like 6 months before you can accidentally die and it counts.
So Wormwood to the rescue again. Matt says it's funky. Saw a documentary about absinthe, ordered it, and absolutely hated the taste. Lesson learned.
DJ says my buddy loves black licorice and I can't figure it out. Well, if he has high blood pressure, tell him to lay off. That's what I do. I know things more than I know.
What was the
black licorice or licorice of color?
Mike, what was the thing they had at the turn of the century where it was kind of like a pair of goggles and you could rotate like images through it, like a proto kind of Etch-a-Sketch, but it actually kind of mimicked movement?
Rotoscope.
A rotoscope, yeah. So Matt, I think, in the era, you've got to be in your top hat, you've got to have your cravat, and you've got to have your rotoscope handy, Maybe with some saucy images showing a bit too much ankle, if you understand what I'm saying.
Saw that lady's neck.
I think you have to have all the elements.
That'll be a good place to wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for being here on today's exciting episode of Cross Examinations. We learned a lot today.
Yes.
About incest and licorice. So
yep. Stay away from the licorice.
A little bit about the Bible. So if you've got questions and whatnot, save them up for tomorrow's episode. And until then, we'll see you all. Well, hold on. Everyone have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care of each other, and we'll see you all on the next exciting episode of
Cross Examinations.
Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!